Welcome back for another video. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got FPL World Champion Jonas joining us. Thanks for taking the time to come chat. We're going to chat about his unbelievable season, winning the whole thing, obviously, and we'll talk through his team for this new season. So, Jonas, welcome. How are you feeling?
Thank you, Oscar. I'm doing really good.
It's good to have you. Appreciate you taking the time. Should I tell them the story?
Up to you.
All right, so me and Jonas actually go back further than him winning FPL. Way back last year, I'd been out for my mate's birthday, and I got in pretty hammered, and I decided to wait and sober up a bit before going to bed. So I hopped on the Focal Discord server, link below by the way if anyone wants to join. And Jonas was online at the time, and we ended up chatting in voice chat for the first time. Then it ended up like a good hour or so that we talked. So yeah, we've spoken like on and off in the server since then, and only later found out that you'd been drinking that night as well. So it's pretty crazy, like what's played out since then, and you've gone on to win the whole thing. So yeah, anyway, on to FPL chat, shall we? I
Yeah.
mean, first question, Jonas. Like, how did it feel? How did it feel to be one out of 10 million people to win FPL?
Well, winning FPL was really exciting. And like towards the end of the season, I got a pretty huge gap and ended up winning with 51 points, I think it was. It was quite surreal, to be fair.
Yeah, I remember that. Like normally it goes down to the wire, and you had it. I think you had it pretty much wrapped up. Like in the last couple of game weeks, you were like 50 points clear going into gaming eight, something like that, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
anything can happen in FPL, obviously, but yeah, I remember you absolutely smashing it. Do your mates play FPL? Like, do they know about you winning it?
Yeah, I got plenty of mates that play FPL. And I've played with my father for 10, 11 years or something as well.
Damn, that's a proud dad moment. And you battered your mates in the league as well. Yeah, fair play. What was the prize you got for winning FPL?
I get to go to a couple of Premier League games. Just waiting for confirmation from the Premier League there. Then I got a couple of other things like a MacBook, a watch,
Oh,
uh,
nice.
a stress ball, a mug, a small goodie bag. But I suppose the main prize is the trip. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, 100%. Me and Jonas had spoken before about the tickets, and we're going to try and link up. Is it Arsenal or Liverpool you're coming over for, or one of the games?
I hope
We're still
so.
deciding.
I haven't gotten confirmation yet, so I don't
All
know.
right. I mean, there's pretty good prizes, but I mean, I wish FPL had even better prizes, like 10 grand or something. I know it's like a completely free game, but it's so hard to win FPL, 10 million plus people, and like I know it's a free game, but in a way, I think FPL is like brilliant marketing. Like, only FPL gets you invested in like Mikalenko if he keeps a clean sheet against Brighton game week one, and then you're like, before you know it, you've taken a TV package to watch it. But anyway, that's another story. Shall we have a look at your team for the new season and how you're lined up? Uh,
Sure.
well, let's start in goal. So you've gone for Raya, interestingly, in goal. I was thinking I hadn't seen Raya in many teams, but then I looked at his ownership, and I think besides Turner, he's the most owned keeper. So stating the obvious, probably. But what's the thinking with Raya as your keeper?
Well, he is the cheapest nailed route into the Arsenal defense, who by far were the best defense last season. So, although they don't have the best fixtures at the beginning, I think we all would want Arsenal defensive cover long term.
Yeah.
Even though I'm also considering downgrading him to a 4.5 and getting an Arsenal defender instead, such like Gabriel or Saliba.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it? He's 0.5 cheaper, but there's potential to get those extra points for the point 0.5. Yeah, if you go
Mm.
Saliba or Gabriel. White, I don't know if I'll go there for 6.5, but I said that like last season in Game Week 1, and White ended up obviously scoring a hefty amount of extra points. Yeah, I like the Raya pick actually, but yeah, I'm on the fence between Raya. I mean, Edison's no chance for 5.5 or Allison. It's going to be Raya. So let's move on to your defense. So you've gone with a back three, right? So 3-5-2, and you've got Burn, Trent, and Vardiol. So yeah, Trent 7 mil, Vardiol 6 mil. So he spent quite a lot at the back. What's the thinking with the back three selection?
Well, I would want defensive cover from the three best teams in the league. Plus, both Guardiol and Trent are, or they did at least last season with Guardiol, play very offensively.
Yeah, I mean Trent as
To
well,
get some
right? He's
offensive threat there as well. Yeah, Trent, of
yeah.
course.
I think it's his cheapest price for 5 or so years, right? So yeah, he's come way back down. He's not been this cheap since 2019. I mean, have you got any worries? Just thinking out loud about a new manager, possibly a new system, or do you think like he's still worth a go for 7 mil?
I would have to see some preseason games before, see how we shape up.
Yeah. Is that something you do then? Do you like monitor preseason results? Yeah, kind of who's in form, that sort of thing.
I try not to get too distracted by preseason. It's mostly like the last game of preseason where they try to play their best team. That's like the most important game to me. Although
Yeah.
I am a Liverpool fan, so I would like to watch preseason games either way.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like you have to be careful not to get too invested in hype in preseason. Like we've seen Rogers, for example, smashing it. He's 5 mil, but I
Hmm.
think it was like a League Two side, Warsaw. I think they played, and then like a Slovakian team. So he's got 3 goals in 2 games. But yeah, it's like early preseason games, so we'll have to see how they line up later on in preseason. General question, actually, how do you decide your transfers each week? Like which players you're looking to move on, or if you're going to roll? What's your process there?
Hmm. Usually, I come up with an idea around Sunday or Monday. So usually after the Premier League games are finished, and I just let the idea marinate for a few days. Try not to think about FPL, as I believe in something called decision fatigue. Then I bring it back up on Friday, Saturday, and ultimately end up with a decision. I usually dedicate like an hour or two before deadline to FPL just to catch up with the news and leaks and all of that.
So, what do you mean by decision fatigue? Is that like when you overthink all your moves, or you prefer to
Yeah,
just
basically, it's like the
wait?
more decisions you allow yourself to make, the worse the decision gets.
Okay. You know what? That's interesting you say that because there have been times where it's Monday or Tuesday, and I'm like, I'll do this, and then as the week goes on, it's like, actually, I think this is better. And then the
Mhm.
next game it plays out, and it's like, oh, I had it right the first time round, and yeah, I mean, overthinking is definitely a factor in FPL. That's
Yeah,
interesting you
and,
say
and
that.
it's a factor in almost every other aspect of life as well.
Yeah, true, true. Yeah, good point. Well, what about hits then? So how often do you take hits, and like when do you actually find it's justified in your opinion to take a hit?
It depends. Last season, I only took 3 hits. Um, but my team was in a good shape for most parts of the season, and I didn't really see any need to do more of them.
Uh-huh.
I do like to take hits around doubles and blanks. 2 of my 3 hits last season revolved around the Gameweek 28 double and Gameweek 29 blank.
Would you say you're quite a patient manager then, like based on taking 3 hits all season? I mean, I think I took about 8 last season, to be honest with you. Would you say you're quite a patient manager?
I try to, but I won FPL and my team was in a good shape for huge parts of the season. So
Yeah.
I got a bit lucky there as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, your squad management last season was just unbelievable. I know, like you have to have things go your way, like avoiding injuries, but yeah, you smashed it. I got just out of interest. Do you consume any FPL content, like articles or videos, like podcasts, anything like that?
I consume actually very little FPL content. I sometimes read a bit. Sometimes I listen to a podcast maybe every week or so, one podcast a week. But mostly I like to just trust the data instead of
Hmm.
consuming content.
I know you're quite an analytical manager. Is it FPL Optimized podcast that you listened to a bit
I
last
listen to
season?
FPL Optimized, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they do some great stuff. Setup and co. Let's move on to your midfield then. So you've got Bruno, Eze, Salah, Palmer, and Gibbs White.
Mhm.
So no Foden or an Arsenal mid at the moment. You got any concerns about that, or are you happy enough with the midfield you've picked here?
Well, I'm also considering getting Saka in. I just haven't decided yet, really. Um, apart from that, I'm quite set on at least Bruno Fernandes,
Hmm.
as I think he's likely to be involved and he is a penalty taker.
I've just seen as well. Arteta was asked about players who are at the Euros. So obviously Saka was the main one, and Raya, and he basically indicated that they'll be back for Game Week 1. because that was something that I'd wondered. Are the likes of Saka going to get Gameweek 1 off, like he did at the last Euros? But yeah, it looks like Saka is going to be good to go by Gameweek 1, which isn't surprising. That's what I thought might happen, to be honest with you.
Mm.
Yeah, Bruno, love the Bruno pick. So you're on Salah right now, Captain
Mhm.
Salah. So you're
Yeah,
you're leaning towards Salah as it stands over Haaland. Do you just
yeah.
prefer the way you can distribute the money, or do you think he's better value for
Well,
12
well,
and a half?
it is the way I can distribute the money, yeah. And also he has great opening fixtures. He's the main man for Liverpool. He's been a consistent FPL player. Is it 200 points the last 7 years or something?
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
Palmer as well. So instead, you've gone for like the Salah Palmer combination. So
Mhm.
despite the biggest price increase in history of Palmer, you're still pretty settled on Palmer.
Yeah, I think so. But he's maybe the one in midfield that I might bin off for Saka, actually.
He's quite highly owned as well, Saka, and I think Foden as
Mhm.
well. So do you factor in effective ownership at all in terms of your decision making, or do you completely ignore, whether a player is extremely highly owned and there's a rank risk?
Yeah, I usually say that like the boring picks are boring for a reason. So I try to factor effective ownership a tiny bit. Whereas you could, for my captain, for instance, I try to go with the safe pick, and that's often the one with the highest effective ownership.
Mm.
And then I would rather have like your third defender or your fifth midfielder or whatever could be like a more differential pick. So I just try to play it as safe as possible.
I'm glad you mentioned captaincy actually. So you're on Salah captain Game Week 1. I took a few screenshots before the game went down for the new season, preempting that hopefully we get to do this video. And you had 69% success rate with your captains last season.
Mhm.
Yeah, as you say, you tend to just stick with the reliable players, and that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Haaland, you captained 15 times, Salah 13 times, and you captained 8 different players in total, which is quite interesting, by the way, because I spoke to Ali, who was the champion the year before you, and he was very different. He was all over the place with captaincy. He captained like I think 16 different players. So interesting that you've got different approaches there. But how
Mhm.
do you decide who you're going to captain each week? Is it like a gut feeling, or do you look at expected value, projected points and that sort of thing?
For me, it's usually the top expected value pick, and the top expected value pick also usually seems to be the most popular pick among the whole of FPL community.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a logical way of doing it. I tend to do exactly the same myself. Then if it goes wrong, you say, "Oh, at least he was the top for projected points." Blame it on
Right.
the analytics. Something else that's popular actually is free at the back. And last season, you almost entirely went free at the back. You went 3-4-3 17 times last season, and then 3-5-2 16 times. So only a back four a few times the entire season, 5 times in total. What's the thinking with your formation choices, if any, or is that just like a consequence of where you see the value?
Well, I think the first few game weeks of last season, like let's say the first 8 or 10, was where the most of my four backs formation was. Uh, but we saw a pattern last season where almost no one kept a clean sheet, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Uh,
Yeah.
wasn't it the most goals scored in the Premier League season ever or something?
Mm.
hmm
And I think,
So
yeah, the fewest clean sheets.
there was not enough clean sheets to justify playing a four back too many times.
Yeah. It's funny how it changes season to season. Like a couple of
Mhm.
years ago, it was like Cancelo, Trent, uh, like Chilwell, James back four, that sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, there's still obviously premiums worth picking, but it seems very much. I mean, I suppose as well with the BPS changes, midfielders or all players get extra bonus points or BPS for taking shots on target. So I think
Mhm.
that's going to favour it even more towards midfielders and attackers. But it'd be interesting to see how the points tallies play out over the season. So let's finish with your front two, shall we? So you've gone with João Pedro and Isaac, and we'll pull up your bench as well because you've got Armstrong, who's also 5.5 mil on your bench, Conser, Armstrong, and Johnson. So what's the thinking with these two then? No Watkins, but you've got João Pedro, Isak, and Armstrong. What's your thinking with the front two here?
Well, Isak was one of the first names I put on my team sheet. And João Pedro was also one of the first ones. And then you have Armstrong, he was one of the last ones for me. And I didn't have money for anyone else. But as I said earlier, I'm also thinking about downgrading Palmer and using the funds elsewhere. So that's probably up top. For instance, let's say João Pedro to Watkins.
Mm. Yeah, I mean Watkins, his ownership's crazy high. I actually don't have him either in my current draft, but I've got a slightly different front three. I'm playing 3-4-3. But yeah, I've got Isak. I mean, Isak, I think is a lock for me at this point. Are you tempted at all? Actually, I see you got the vice captaincy on him. Are you tempted at all by Isak captain, or is it kind of just gut feeling right now? Salah's the better pick against the promote. I mean, they're both promoted teams, but away at Ipswich.
Yeah, I think Salah is the better pick. I never even considered, or I don't know yet, but I haven't even considered Isak yet as my captain.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. It's a nice fixture because they got the home fixture. I did a video like analyzing all the FPL YouTuber teams, and surprisingly, Isak was the second most popular captain after Salah, and then it was Haaland third. So yeah, that surprised me a bit, but I can definitely see it home against Southampton there. An interesting quote as well, actually, from Southampton manager. He was saying, "We're not going to go to teams like Liverpool, City, and just shut up shop. We're going to, play expansive football." And I think, yeah, those sort of games are going to be wide open, and they could be a team to target. So yeah, I've actually got the double up Gordon and Isak myself. So Armstrong's an interesting one. What's the plan with him? Are you going to rotate him off your bench as and when with other players like Gibbs White and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it's mostly for me going to be a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. Mostly 3-5-2. I mean,
Yeah.
And then let's say Gibbs White got quite good opening fixtures, but let's say they play a Liverpool or a Man City. They play Liverpool away in game week 4 actually. So for instance, then I could put Armstrong on instead. Who play Man United at home, which is a better fixture.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then you've got Johnson stuck last on your bench, who is 4 mil, I believe. I've not seen him in many teams, Johnson. What's the thinking with the Johnson pick? He's just joined from West Ham, right?
Yeah, he did. My 4.0 defender is still undecided. Right now, I have Johnson as he is expected to start in the right back position for Ipswich. But we have many other options as well. As I think Johnson might be a quite defensive right back, as you got Leif Davis running up that left side, right? But you got many other options. Harwood Bellis, Wood Foss. You got that Greaves guy, that 6'4" center back for Ipswich.
He's the one I've got. Yeah, I've got Greaves right now. But I like the Johnson pick because, yeah, on paper, he's probably a bit likely to get a return. But yeah, as you said, Leif Davis down the left is the one that's generally going to get the attacking returns out of the back four this season. So a general question on chips. You absolutely smashed it on free hit 34 last season. When do you generally decide to use your chips? Do you free hit in doubles or blanks, or does it vary season to season?
It does vary season to season, but usually I like to try and dead end into the big blank, like 29 was this season, and save my free hit for a big double game week.
I mean, that was a masterstroke last season because a lot of us used it in blank game week 29, myself included. And I think the average was something like 17 points. It was like unbelievably low. It might have been the lowest average ever. So
yeah, I think I got like 15 points that game week.
That's crazy. I mean, it goes to show like you can have a bad game week and still win the whole thing. Like it's not the end of the world. But yeah, that was a really good decision to save it, and that was one of my regrets last season. But I didn't do too bad. I got like 21, so I beat the average by like 6 points.
It could have turned out the other way as well, though. You never know.
Yeah, it was one of those weeks. Yeah, there's a lot of hindsight, but yeah. What about your wildcard out of interest? So 2 wildcards, and obviously this season something that's new is we can have up to 5 free transfers. So you could, bank 4 or 5 transfers if your team's in a good position, wildcard, and then still have them afterwards. Have you
Mhm.
thought much about that in terms of strategy, or you just kind of play it by ear as the season goes on and see if you're even in that position to have bank transfers?
I haven't thought too much about it. My only thought is that I would maybe like to play it a bit aggressive at the start, like not go for stupid picks, but play a bit aggressive and then wildcard out of it early, like let's say game week 6 or 7.
Yeah. What would be the decision there to pull the trigger on the wild card? Would it be like you've got a bunch of injuries or like fixture swings, that sort of thing, underperforming players, or is it sort of a combination of everything?
Well, there's two things that will make me trigger the wild card. The first one is that I plan to trigger the wild card, and I like to trust my plan.
Yeah.
And the other one is just, let's say I got a ton of injuries and underperforming players as well. So to fix that, would have cost me like a -24 hit, for instance.
Yeah. So you're very
Mm.
much a planner. How far in advance do you plan?
It depends. I usually have like a transfer strategy for the next, like, let's say 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm similar to you. I try to plan at least 4 weeks in advance, but obviously more often than not it changes. But
Of
yeah,
course.
it's very much a game of planning. Jonas, it's been so good chatting to you, mate. So thanks for taking the time to chat. I'm wishing you all the best for the new season. Jonas is at ASC_FPL on X. If you'd like to follow him, please do so. Jonas, thanks again for joining us. Wishing you the best, mate. Good luck this season.
Thank you for having me.